We now present to you Retro Collecting 101, and here's your host, Mark Flores. Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mark, here with another installment of Retro Collecting 101. Once again, Retro Collecting 101 is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and current generation consoles. That's Xbox One and PS4. You could come in contact with Game Swappers at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Hey guys, how's it going again? This is another installment of Retro Collecting 101. We're here to cover a vast number of things here today. I'm going to be talking about what you should be doing to cleaning your cartridges, 2 key retro accessories that I recommend to people, and a whole lot more on the docket. I'm also going to cover a $5 game as of today that's really good for its value. And if you don't have it, it may be beneficial for you to actually get it. And just a few other tidbits that I'm going to give out throughout the show. But this is about 4:30. This is a live podcast. It is pretty rainy out here in Southern California. I was inside at about 12 o'clock, and I look back, and then I see that it's raining at about 4:30. I didn't look out till then, and now it's raining cats and dogs. Anyway, let's go on to cleaning Nintendo cartridges, cleaning SNES, Super Nintendo, Genesis cartridges, anything with the copper contact pin. I've heard a lot of people, I've been a victim of having dirty cartridges at a time, but I was fearful at one point that I didn't have the correct solvents or correct cleaning accessories to clean these games. So I would let them stay dormant and wait till I found an actual thing that actually worked. I've heard many things. I mean, we've all tried blowing our Nintendo cartridges. A lot of people are pretty familiar with the sound that goes. I mean, that's pretty much going to bring back some memories for you out there who either, were playing back in the day or still play currently. That usually does work, especially if you look and see that the contact pins, that's those little pins on the inside of on the inside part of the cartridge where you insert your game in. You'll see in there that if they're roughly clean and your Nintendo's not starting up, that's just a good method of doing it. I mean, a lot of people have actually invested a lot of research to see that it actually doesn't do anything. It's more of a habit and conditioning that we've all been used to. Some say it does, some say it doesn't. But with research, and a lot of people says that it doesn't work. It's just a mirror. It's like blowing on a pair of dice when you're playing craps at the crap table. Some say it works, some say it doesn't. It's almost as equally as successful as that. Anyway, so what I've learned throughout the years of doing this retro collecting stuff is that there's a few practical things that can actually work if you have it around the house. But first and foremost, what do you do to clean the contact pins? Do you use a toothbrush? Do you use this? Do you use that? What I recommend is that people use just use Q-tips, and not any high end brand. Just go to the dollar store and buy a bag of 1,000 Q-tips for $1. That's how I remember buying the Q-tip bag I use today, and I've bought it like almost 4 years ago, and I still haven't got to the end of the bag. So if you're cleaning cartridges like me almost on the daily, you'll find it really beneficial to use the 1,000 count Q-tip brush. It's just a generic dollar brand store Q-tip. Has the Q-tip on both ends. So, but what I use if I don't have the cleaner that I will recommend later right now, I'll use Windex. Windex is a practical choice for novice retro collectors because it is something that you can have around the house any time of the week. What I usually do if I don't have the solvent that I use that I'm going to mention later is that I'll just get a little bit, I'll put a little pull of Windex on like a saucer or a little plate or something, and I'll just dab a little bit of it. I'll dab my Q-tip into the pool a little bit, and I won't let it soak in all the way. I'll make sure it's a little damp, but not overly to where it's soaking the Q-tip. And then I'll just brush off the copper coils. I'll brush off both sides. And then at that point, it usually fires up. So I'll use the one side of the Q-tip to wipe the copper pin connector. The pins. And then I'll use the other side to dry it. Now, it's worked for me. It's worked wonders for all the cartridges that I have. I've never had a problem where the Windex will corrode any of the pins. So I have nothing but good things to say about it. The way I do it is, I just use about 2 or 3 Q-tips, dry them on the side. I just go, you can really go hard on these things. We all know that cartridges can last the test of time, so just don't be afraid to go in there and put a little elbow grease on your inside part, and you should be fine with about 2 or 3 of them. But keep remembering that the more you take off, the more dirt, the more debris that you take off the inside part of your cartridge, is you're going to be increasing your chance of that game playing. I usually tell people that way they know that they're actually going to be doing something that's going to have a success at the end, because a lot of people are like, no, that cartridge is too dirty, it's filthy, it's not going to work. And I just grab the Q-tip, even if I'm at their house, I will be like, well, just give me some Q-tips, give me some Windex, and I'll make this cartridge work, and I promise. Because you can look, any novice gamer now, if you're more educated on now how to clean carts, you'll be able to see if you're able to clean these cartridges, or if they're just too overly corroded, you might just not want to even work on it. You might just have a fancy paperweight lying around. I remember I had this one story. A friend of mine had another friend. His console wasn't working, so my friend gave it to me and told me, hey, well, he wants it to see if it's going to work. So what I did, I had the one game that he brought with me along with the console. It was a Nintendo 64. So what I did first was I wanted to make sure if it was the game or if it was a console. So I got one of my games that I know for sure worked. I put it in his Nintendo 64, and surely enough, it worked. So then my next plan of strategy was to actually look at the game, and it was NFL Blitz 2000. I looked at the inside part of it, and man, this thing was filthy. It was extremely filthy. I had to use probably about 3 or 4 Q-tips before it started firing up. So then I had to let my friend know that to clean all his carts, because the reason your Nintendo 64 is working is because you have games that are so disgustingly filthy that these things aren't going to fire up. So that could be, that could be the issue that you're having if some of you retro collectors don't see your Nintendo 64s working. Maybe you have dirty games. So that may be a factor in too as well. The one actual solvent, the one that's going to actually do the best for you if people do have it, it's called it's a cleaner called Brasso. And Brasso, from what I've seen Will at Game Swappers use it. Every time I get a game from him, I always just tell him to just clean off the pin connectors real quick. The inside part of it real quick, and for sure enough, when I get it back after he wipes it a little bit, it looks very clean. And then I use it myself. I use it myself in the most difficult of situations. If my Windex doesn't work, then I decide to go into the Brasso and put some work into there. But what you have to do, if you go from Windex to Brasso, you got to make sure that those chemicals don't react to each other. You just got to make sure that Windex, all of that is completely dried out. You've taken all of it out before you put Brasso in, because I haven't done it myself. I've just been safe with chemicals like that. So just do it with the safe practice, because you never know what kind of glass cleaning chemicals that you have that might react to the Brasso. Who knows? I'm not saying it does. I just don't do it out of safe practice. But yeah, that's what you got to do to clean cartridges. There's really, unless they were submerged in water, then you're looking at a different kind of situation where you have to air dry it all out and hope it doesn't corrode. Usually by then it's pretty much a done deal, but I've seen miracles worked on cartridges before, so it just depends. A bunch of factors come into play, like how long was it submerged for. You just got to make sure that as soon as you get it out of the water, you got to make sure to dry it out. And after you done dried it out, you got to see whether or not it's gonna corrode, or even I lost my train of thought real quick. I'm sorry about that. You just got to make sure it doesn't corrode, and to see if you can get some cleaning solvent into it as soon as possible. But make sure to dry it out completely. I would use my Nintendo 64 screw. I would pop it open, and then I would just let it dry out. And then after that, after a couple days of it standing by itself, go back to it, look at it, and see if it just needs some TLC in the inside, or if it just needs some cleaning on the inside connectors. You should be fine there. I mean, I've seen phones work after they've been submerged, but those are a bunch of other remedies, but this still correlates to what we're talking about as technology anyway. Anyway, so that is the cleaning cartridges segment of the show. I want to go into two key retro accessories for your retro hunting. If you already have the accessories that I'm going to mention after, then this really doesn't pertain to you. This is more along the lines of for the amateur collector, for the ones barely starting out. I'm only going to recommend these ones to them because it's really beneficial. Like the main thing to do nowadays is to be maxing out your finances so you're able to buy the games. I mean, now in a day and age, you could be an avid collector for the consoles, but if you want to get out towards the rare titles, you might want to save $1 or $2 to get one of these accessories instead. They would be beneficial to you because they are either eco-friendly, or they're a multiple console, or they just do something that the previous iteration before that didn't do. One of them is a Super Game Boy. Super Game Boy is still relatively inexpensive. It's run about $15 to $20. It depends where you go. I recommend that to people all the time. I tell them I don't understand why people still try to play the Game Boy in their house if they know that they have a Super Nintendo console ready to go with a Super Game Boy. I tell people you do not need to waste batteries. The game looks a lot better on a bigger screen, and you don't have to hope for a well lit area. There's a bunch of factors that come into play, but the old Game Boy had a tough time with that because of the green-lit screen. It was hard to see in dark places. You needed a place where it was well lit. But then when you go to the Game Boy Advance SPs, you had backlit screens. But the Super Game Boy gives you the advantage of playing the Game Boy games in the convenience of your home. So, like, if the factor is that if you're inside your house, why would you do yourself a disservice of playing it on a smaller screen? And if you have the first generation of the Game Boys, you're not going to be playing it in color. You're just going to be playing it in green and black with the backlit part of the background of the screen plus the dark LCD part of the screen. You'll be doing yourself a disservice. Main point. A lot of people don't know, including myself. I barely found this out, but if you hold L and R, you'll be able to get a different menu of the screen where you'll be able to see the screen in several different ways. You'll be able to see it like a movie theater. You'll be able to see the background a lot different. That is cool to me. I didn't know that the Super Game Boy didn't have it because I only had the cartridge by itself, and I didn't know it had many other features other than that. But the Super Game Boy to me was probably, I remember playing it one time at my friend Andy. I played it at his house, and I was like, "Whoa!" Because I had my Game Boy with me, and he saw me playing it, and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing, man? We could play it here." And I'm like, "Play it here," and he was pointing to the Super Nintendo. And when I actually saw the adapter that he did, and keep in mind, this is when I was about 8 or 9, so I never seen nothing like that. So we were actually playing the Donkey Kong Land in the Super Game Boy, which was pretty cool to me. It was cool seeing the whole screen, and it was cool seeing the game in all its glory. And that's what you need nowadays. I mean, why would you want to see it on a smaller screen when you can see it on a bigger screen at your house? Or if people saw my Instagram earlier, they saw that I had the Super Game Boy lodged into the Super Boy. So I just reverse stepped and made another Game Boy on that little Super Game Boy screen. I mean, the Super Boy screen. I thought that was pretty amusing. As I was typing out that post that I posted, it was like, wait, I just made a Game Boy because the Super Boy has a screen on the inside as well. It was just amusing to me at that point. But one thing I recommend to people, for the convenience of playing the games in your house, you get the Super Game Boy. A, because it's still super expensive. B, you'll be able to see the games in a lot more definition and a lot more color, and you'll be able to have the option to customize the background that you watched on. That's why I like telling people all the time. Another key retro accessory or a handheld that I recommend. I recommend the Game Boy Advance SP. For all the amateur collectors out there, I recommend that you do get that, just because if you play Game Boy games on the go, if you play the Game Boy Color on the go, and the first Game Boy, what is the one thing that you notice after playing after a long time? You're going to notice that the battery's dying. For the first generation Game Boy, it took 8 batteries. For the Game Boy Pocket and for the Game Boy Color, it all took 2. But you gotta realize now it's more of a hassle to go to a convenience store, go to a store to buy a bunch of batteries, when if you can buy the Game Boy Advance SP, you'll be able to have the ability to recharge these batteries. But yeah, maybe after a long time, the lithium-ion battery inside only has a certain amount of charge cycles before it starts deteriorating. Yeah, that's true, but you'll be able to have that ability to keep playing these games a lot longer than you would without switching. In the instance if you were to switch these batteries, the Game Boy Advance SP is around the same price nowadays as a Game Boy Color or as a Game Boy Pocket. You're looking at about, it just depends where you go. The Game Boy Advance SP is probably about $20 to $35 still nowadays, depending on the condition, depending on what you get with it. But there's tons of benefits to it. I mean, it's more compact. You'll be able to fold it. You'll be able to have a lot more. It's a lot louder on the volume end of it. You'll be able to have a backlit screen, and then you'll have a lithium-ion battery, so you'll be able to charge the thing while you're on the go. I still have my SP that I've had as long as I've had it. I mean, I had it when I was a kid. The thing's awesome. You're able to charge it up. You could press the the R bumper at the top, the R trigger at the top, and you're able to minimize the screen either to a regular square screen or flat screen. To widescreen. I personally have nothing but good to say about it. But let's look at the good points that I have here. You can either have a Game Boy Color that you have to change the batteries out every so often, or you can never change the batteries out for as long as you own it. And you'll be able to, with the SP anyway, you'll be able to charge it and play it as long as you want and just charge it up again, and you won't have to go through battery cycles. You don't have to go to the store to get batteries. You'll be one of the few people nowadays who still have to get batteries. You'll be in line next to the guy that needs a smoke detector battery, and then you'll be behind the guy who needs batteries for the Wiimote, and which still confuses me because I don't know why the Wiimotes never had a rechargeable adapter to the battery. I never knew that. There's times where I have to pop the batteries out of my remote on my television to power the Wiimote just so I can access all the GameCube games that I play on my Wii. That's one thing too. And I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but I just don't like how the Wii doesn't control with the GameCube controller that you have plugged in when you have to use the Wiimote first. So that means you still have to find batteries. You still have to use the sensor bar on the Wii, Oh man, that just brought me to that point. But so it's like this. Unless you're a purist, unless you're the guy who wants to collect all the little, all the Game Boy stuff, that's fine. Perfect. Do you. But if you want, on the other hand, if you want to maximize your buying, maximize your finances, and if you're more focused on actually getting the games instead, you want to stick to your Game Boys, do all that. But if you see that the option, if you see what the convenience outweighs what you're going to do with the Game Boy Color, get the SP. You'll be able to do that. You'll be eco-friendly, and you want to spend money on batteries. SPs are near the same price of a regular Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color. You get an SP. If not, you're going to be paying the same price. Say if you bought a Game Boy, out of all the times you're going to be switching out the batteries because I don't know whether or not you buy them in bulk or what have you, but you'll probably be paying the same amount of price at the end of the day that you would have paid if you just got an SP off the jump. But if you're just into the games, then be more efficient, with your console purchases. And that's what I'm telling you. If you want to be more efficient on that end, that's when you get a Game Boy Advance SP. I've been telling that to a lot of people, to whoever asked me on the advice on that end. But yeah, so two accessories I recommend: Super Game Boy. Play the Game Boy games at home. If you have a Super Nintendo and the Super Game Boy, play them both in the convenience of your house. It's still inexpensive to get. It's about $15 to $20. You'll still be able to get it online fairly cheap. And then the Game Boy Advance SP, you'll be able to get, it's a lot more compact. You don't want to waste money on batteries. It's rechargeable, backlit screen, so you can play it wherever you want. I mean, and it's backwards compatible. It plays Game Boy Advance, it plays Game Boy Color games, and it plays Game Boy original Game Boy games. And they all play them in color, which is awesome to me. So let's go to this next part of the segment here. A lot of people, this is gonna date me here on this, but a month ago I went to the Retro Game Expo in the City of Industry. I was helping out Game Swappers at their booth, and I was in control. The boss put me in charge of just overseeing all the bargain bin stuff in the Nintendo Power magazine. So I was stuck in a corner all day with a bunch of crappy games. But within those crappy games were some games that were actually pretty good. So from that stack, I was able to recommend some games for the price of, however, I forget, I think it was like $5, however low he had it, but I was able to recommend from those games what were the best ones to get, because there was a lot of amateur collectors there. And that's how much, and that's what the market was about nowadays. It was the Portland, the Retro Game Expo in City of Industry had a bunch of amateur collectors, so there's a lot of people barely getting back into the mix of how good these games are. They weren't really adept to knowing what games were good because they've been out of the game so long, or they're just new to it. So all they knew was their common stuff, like their Duck Hunts, their Super Mario Bros. So you have to, there's times where, the people that are more experienced can just educate people on what are good games, what aren't, so on and so forth. So to get to my point is I was always recommending games. As the piles deteriorated, I was always still selecting games for them that were still good until the pile got to so much that I was left with a bunch of games that, weren't really that fun, but for the price that we were selling them at, they still got they still got the good quality out of them, even for the price. Basically, to sum it up, you need to find the best bang for your buck. There's some games still out there that are cheap, inexpensive, that are still fun to play on the Nintendo, on the NES for under $5. There's a whole slew of them. But what I want to do is, per every segment of Retro Collecting 101, for now, I want to do a cheap good game for under $5 that you can still get online, minus the shipping and handling. You're probably going to be paying about $5 for these games, but you'll still, nonetheless, you'll still be able to get these for about $5, even without me telling you about it and have it. And the prices won't raise on these because these are just really common games, but really fun on the other hand. one game that I recommend to people. The $5 game of the day for me as of today. It was $4.12 loose last time I checked. But it's Rad Racer. Rad Racer, as you know, made famous on in the Wizard movie with Fred Savage and brief cameos by Tobey Maguire with the mullet. If you guys haven't seen it, please go see it just for Tobey Maguire's mullet. You'll be able to see, wow, that's little Peter Parker there with the fresh mullet at Universal Studios. The game is fun to play. If they had a DS version of it or what have you, I mean, it'd be incredible to play. It's a racing game that you have to complete the various checkpoints before you run out of fuel, and there's actually a time limit as well. So you got it. Like I said, if you run out of fuel, you'll lose and you won't win the race. I like the game myself. You have the option of choosing an F1 car or choosing a sports car. The F1 car is a lot faster, but has less handling on the turns, and then the opposite for the sports car. It's a $5 game that I recommend everyone to have, especially in their collection, because there's a lot of times where you want to mix it up a little bit on your in your NES library. After you're done playing Contra, after you're done playing your Ninja Gaidens, you probably want to play like a real fun game that's not going to take all the time in your day. I mean, there's RPGs out there that need you to invest, about 48 hours of gameplay before, you even beat it. But nowadays with everyone doing all tons of things, I mean, the trials and tribulations of adulthood, I mean, you're looking at the fact that not a lot of people can invest that much time. We're not, not the majority of us have a lot more responsibilities than that. So there's times where you just need to, play very fairly inexpensive games. Rad Racer is fun to play. The racing action's always nonstop. Like I said, 2 choices of vehicles. I mean, it's a must-have for the NES library, in my opinion. A lot of people tell me that they have an issue, and this is basically a PSA for some of you, but some people tell me that they get motion sickness by the way the lines blur on the road. That may be a case for you, but you'll be able to assess fairly well if you have the motion sickness that comes with the game. But to me, Rad Racer is still fun to play. I like it. I mean, it's really the tracks are really, they're really difficult when you progress along. I mean, you have your straightaways and stuff, but then you have hairpin turns and whatnot to going about it. I really enjoy it myself, and it is a $5 game I recommend to you. Rad Racer for the NES. There's really not much to say about it. If you played it, then you know what I'm talking about, and if not, make sure you cop it, because that's the one game I recommend. Okay, so now we're going on to this next part here. This is one topic I wanted to talk about. It's going to be talking about the Nintendo 64 expansion pack. This accessory by itself runs about $15 to $20, depending where you go. It gives you the ability to play some games that require it, i.e. your Majora's Mask. I think Rogue Squadron either needs it or it's enhanced by it. There's a lot of titles too that will be enhanced by the expansion pack, though. You'll get extra cutscenes, or you'll get enhanced graphics, or even enhanced audio with the. It's basically like a RAM upgrade into your Nintendo 64. What I tell people nowadays, if you find a Nintendo 64 by itself, no wires, just the box, if it's priced around about $10 to $15, and then you should get it. That's my advice. $10 to $15 by itself, you should get it. Because you'll be able to Frankenstein the console to make it complete. You'll be able to buy your AV power up. I mean, your AV, your power, and then your power box that goes in the back of it. You'll be able to do that fairly inexpensively. For people to do that, I do recommend it, but this is where it starts getting crazy. When is the cutting point for buying the N64, just the box, the box by itself. This is no AV, this is no power. Where's the cutoff point for that? If it's about $20 to $25 and you're going into the $30 range without the box, that's kind of risking it for you to do that. But if you're still in the $20 range, and if you open up that expansion lid, and if you see that they already have an expansion pack with it, I suggest you get it. The reason why is because you'll be able to sell that, the N64 thing case by itself, the box. Let's call it the dock. You'll be able to buy the dock by itself. I mean, you'll be able to sell that by itself, and then you'll be able to keep the Nintendo 64 expansion pack and be able to sell it at $20 a pop. That's very beneficial because now you've separated both items, but you've got $20 here, and then you got another $15 to $20 there in either resale value or even trade credit in some places. This isn't a guarantee, but this is just a fairly good assumption. But that's good because from what you started now, you've almost doubled up your profit. So if you ever find like a Nintendo 64 dock by itself, make sure you pop open that expansion lid, and then you'll be able to see and assess from there whether or not it's going to be profitable for you to actually keep the expansion pack by itself, sell it without it, or pick apart, or piece apart everything. That's the first thing that I do when I look at a Nintendo 64 console. If it has the lid, I just pop it up real quick and I slam it back down. If I see it has the jumper pack, perfect. Then I'll be able to see, well, I has the jumper pack now, so let me see where I can go from here as far as getting a good deal out of this. But if I pop it open and find the expansion pack, then 2 more options come into play, which is good because it's a lot more beneficial now. And when you realize that you have the Nintendo 64 expansion pack, a lot of more doors open as far as trade value, as far as did you need the expansion pack yourself? Did you just need the expansion pack by yourself? Then from there you could just there's a lot more advantages to my point. Let's see, and then if you're able to do this as well. I mean, if you have a bunch of regular jumper packs, the packs that need to be in there to work the Nintendo 64, if you have that in there by yourself, if you have those laying around by itself, you'll be able to swap it, and then you'll be able to sell that with the jumper pack, make a little bit more, and then sell the expansion pack too. The third-party expansion packs, a lot of people tell me, like, well, I'll just get a cheaper expansion pack online. If you do, I mean, that's perfect, but you got to make sure that these things are compatible with your Nintendo 64, because I've had my fair share of trying to test out my Nintendo 64s that I got in with third-party expansion packs, and the games sometimes just randomly freeze up. There's sometimes really, really crazy glitches that happen. I remember seeing a glitch in Majora's Mask that happened every time a certain title sequence came on. But when I switched out the expansion pack to an official Nintendo one, it stopped. So the conclusion was pretty obvious after the swap. It was working. The third-party expansion packs are hit and miss. I don't recommend people to do them. I recommend using the genuine parts that were made for the system because it's all universal at that point. So you could go third party. It will be cheaper, but you'll run the risk of having the game freeze without your save point, or there's a ton of other things that come into play after that. But yeah, that closes the segment on the expansion pack. It's definitely something to look for. If you haven't looked for that expansion pack, now it should be a good time for you to start doing that, because now you have a lot more options as far as that goes. How many times have you sold a Nintendo 64 that possibly had something to had an expansion pack for you to sell separately? Here's another topic that I wanted to cover too. I have this console myself. To me, for the price that this console is worth, it's really not beneficial at all. I like it because I was able to get it fairly inexpensive. So it's something I recommend to people if they still play the combo that it comes with. And I'm talking none other than the CDX, the Sega CDX. For you people out there in Europe, it's known as the Multi-Mega. It's a 2-in-1 game system. It actually plays the Sega CDs, it plays the Sega Genesis cartridges, but it also plays regular audio CDs. It's funny too because the Sega actually marketed this as a portable CD player as well. There's a lot of advertisements that actually show people trying to play these on play CDs because it has a headphone jack too as well. But the CDX is a game system for people who actually enjoy who actually enjoy both systems. Who actually enjoy the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD. I myself never had an interest in the Sega CD. I was very attentive to games after the full motion video phase was over. For a long time, the 32X and the Sega CD all had a bunch of full motion video games that came out, and I wasn't really interested in them. I saw them predominantly in the arcade, but I saw them be very successful in the arcade alone. For one game that is actually good with full motion video, I can give you about 3 or 4 that aren't. But one great benefit is it actually provided one power source for the 2 consoles. You didn't need to side penetrate your Model 1 Genesis, and you didn't need to have a power strip to make both the 2-in-1 work itself. You didn't need a power strip at all to make the Sega CD work. All you needed was just 2 outlets, one for the television and one for your CDX. That's a great benefit for it, but that's only one of the few benefits that I see. If the Sega CD is up your alley, then by all means, the Sega CD is very convenient. But the only downside is that this Sega CD by itself is going upwards of $200, $250 complete. We're talking with cords, control, and everything. I have it myself, and this isn't biased at all because I do own the system. I thought I was going to be able to get used to all the Sega CD games and stuff. I have about 4 or 5 Sega CD games, but man, that system is really an acquired taste. I would stick to platforming games on that system itself. The full motion videos are a little dated. They were I think the full motion video technology was about 5 years behind. Even when the Sega CD came out, I thought it was, from what I've seen in Let's Plays and from what I've seen playing various games on the Sega CD, I see that the technology just wasn't that good. I feel that this was a rush console itself. Some of the games do look great, like Echo the Dolphin. The Tides of Time is really good. Sonic CD is a really good game. There's a lot of good fighters on the Sega CD, but with these full motion video games that really was the selling point of this console, they weren't really good. That's like me, telling you all the good things about a game. Like I'm telling you one good aspect of a game, but I'm not telling you the rest of it because I know it's not that good. I'm not too keen on providing an example right now, but you can. Imagine one person trying to sell you one good thing about the car, but it doesn't have 2 wheels. It runs great or this and that, but if you don't have 2 wheels, how do you expect to even be productive with it? That's what the Sega CD is to me. The Sega CD, the console itself, and the games, the full motion video games by themselves mean in my regard. But the Sega CD, if you can find it inexpensively, by all means get it. But for the asking price of $200 versus you getting a Sega Genesis Model 1 and a Sega CD separately, it might not be very efficient for you to get that 2-in-1, because for $200 it's really not going to be it's really not going to be, to me anyway, it's not going to be that beneficial for you to get that, because for the price of the Genesis by itself and the Sega CD by itself, you're still reaching under about $120, depending where you go. Again, depending the condition of the Sega CD, depends how you get it. That's just an estimation, but That's what I tell people. Like I tell people, like I always tell people I have a CDX, but then I just tell them like, yeah, I barely use it. I only use it for the Sega Genesis games because it's a lot smaller. It's a lot smaller than a regular Genesis. The Genesis is about the same size of a PS2, so the less space the less space it occupies wherever I play, the better. I never used it for this. I've never used it for the audio CD, so I can't really tell you how it sounds there. But for the Sega CD, I don't use it. But for the Sega Genesis, I do. I don't see myself ever playing Sega CDs again, unless it's a fighting game or unless it's like Sonic CD or Echo the Dolphin. Then that's when that's what I go for there. Another tip I want to give people if you have a Nintendo 64 hooked up to your television, you don't have an AV switchboard. You're just limited on one input, like the one in the front. Sometimes the yellow, white, and red RCA inputs. I recommend to people if you have that and you're playing the Nintendo 64 and you want to shoot off to the GameCube or to the Super Nintendo, you want to leave those AV inputs in there, and just switch out the console and the battery pack. I mean switch out the console and the battery, the electrical input, the power adapter. Just change that out because the GameCube, the SNES, and the Nintendo 64 are all universal within themselves. So you'll be able to play them, you'll be able to play them in the convenience, more conveniently, because now you're saving a move by not taking out the inputs and plugging new inputs back in. A bigger plus too is if you're able to find a third party connector that takes in S-Video and is able to plug in with the RCAs as well. I myself found a plug that's able to take the Xbox, the PlayStation 1 and 2, and the Nintendo 64, and they're all able to play through S-Video. I like watching, I like playing video games through S-Video. It looks a lot better. I do enjoy looking at games like that. It's a lot better. It's not, it's not going into the higher realms of inputs, but it's still better than the regular RCA cables. If you're able to go third party and find multiple inputs for that'd be very good for people that hate, going in the back of the television, switching out inputs, and going back and forth with that. If you have the one source plug-in that can do about four of them in one, that'd be perfect. If you're looking at, like, if you want to plug in more than 5 consoles into one television, I recommend you get a switchboard, and then I also recommend that you get a power strip that actually has surge protection. I mean, I don't need to take you to an electricity ramp, but having a bunch of things plugged in or played at the same time is really could bust your circuit breakers wherever you're at. So I just recommend that, play one, turn the TV, turn the console on at a time. Don't have all of them plugged in at the same time, but also has surge protection. That way, what the surge protector does, it actually has a fuse in there which will time out the electric current before going into the wall outlet and save you from a power surge that goes throughout your house and could potentially damage your circuit breaker or just your breaker that's involved in the for that room. But the main things is this: if you're going to be using a 4-in-1 input for the videos, find one that takes this video and find one that is is adaptable to multiple consoles. Including the Nintendo 64 one, because then from the Nintendo 64 input, you'll be able to have two other consoles to play from there. And then if you're going to go to multiple consoles like more than 5 on one television, make sure you get a power strip and make sure you get the AV switchboard. That way you'll be able to switch from one console to the other. But don't leave them all on. You don't want to risk one. But make sure that the power strip has surge protection. I want to wrap up Retro Collecting 101 with a very special message. It's been coming to my attention nowadays that we locally, like in the Southern California area, have been there's been tons of stories I've been telling people about that have been telling me. Me personally, I don't really have any animosity towards no one at all. I really don't try to make enemies, and this isn't speaking out to anyone in particular. I myself don't. But so I've heard a slew of stories about people that don't like other people, this and that. But why can't we all retro gamers just get along? I mean, we're all in this hobby. Oh, hold on. You know what? Let me put on the Young and the Restless right now. We all, as retro collectors, we're all in this hobby all for the same reasons. We shouldn't have issues with one another. We're going to cross paths eventually, whether in the virtual world or in the physical world. I mean, I could just imagine how many people met people that they don't like online at retro game conventions here and there. But we have zero differences when it comes to the retro community. I mean, we're all gamers and we're all hobbyists at heart. We all should be more productive. Instead of having rivalries, we should just have networking and friendships from there. Many situations are different, whether it comes to what ended up happening per the situation. But if it's something small, if it's something that can be repairable, just do it. I mean, like you can even use like rival social media accounts, social media personalities. You guys are brought together by one common bond, and that's retro gaming. So how about you got to lower your guard and let your hair down and come together as one in the community. I mean, how about we use a video store, a video game store analogy? How much trade value does your heart have for compassion and acceptance for your fellow gamer? I mean, you got to think about it like that, because it goes to like this. How many trades, how many potential trades, how many potential games have you missed because someone that you don't like has that said game, and you weren't able to get it because you have this beef with said person? I think we all just at its core, we all need to get along. There's not one person, I don't really have any animosity towards any of these gamers here and there. The only time it would come to a point where I'd have to block somebody is if they're being very excessive and abusive with being real vulgar for no reason, or just being trolls. But my point is that we all need to not focus on petty rivalries in this retro gaming, social community. Our common ground can bridge this gap of envy and lead us to another level. Just if it all comes to this, it's like this. How about we all just follow the golden rule and treat others the way we want to be treated, and get along at the end of the day? I mean, there's probably, some people do suck. There's some mean people out there, but as far as video games and in this hobby right now, you only have one life to live. And how about you just enjoy the good parts of this hobby with people that can share your hobby as well? For what I want to close off to people is, join the party and make sure you hang up the attitude at the door. I mean, my final thought is this. I mean, I don't mean to go on a tirade, because this is really, it's really getting to that point, but it's like this. For all the people that have like beefs, and for all the people that have like all these rivalries with social accounts and social gaming accounts, it's just like this. If it's an issue that can be, squashed, just press the reset button, Just press the reset button on that, It's just start anew. Maybe from that point, you guys can network to do a trade. You guys could do, this and that. Guys and girls especially, I mean, you guys got to think about stuff like that to a certain extent. But I'm going off a tirade here, but I want to tell you guys, there's a lot of love in this retro community. I can speak volumes for it. There's tons of people that I've met through this community that have traded with me, have good things to say about me, and I have good things to say about them. But if there's an issue that I need to work out with people, whether it be on a claim sale, whether it be personally, I just speak up to them specifically and see what the issue is and see if we can resolve it on a respectable level. We don't need to be animalistic and get to physical, to physical altercations to fix these issues about anything. It doesn't need to get to that point. But anyway, that was my final thought. I want to wish you guys a very good day, rest of the day. I know we're here live, but I want to also let you know that I do appreciate all the listens I get to all my shows. From the amount of listens I get on a daily basis, it lets me know that a lot of people are in tune and they like the content that I say, or that I have to, have per segment. I do have another announcement, is that this is an exclusive one for you people that are listening live, is I'm going to have a Mark and Andre show tonight. I know that I have them available on Saturdays, but due to special circumstances, I'm able to have it tonight live. Later tonight, the time will be, I think I'm going to have it about 8 o'clock. So if you know people that like tuning into the Mark and Andre show, be sure to let them know it's going to be about 8 o'clock where I'm going to have it. One thing to let you guys know is that Retro Collecting 101 is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and current gen consoles, Xbox One, PS4. You can contact them on Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. Once again, I'll say it a lot slower. I know I speak a little fast when it comes to that. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. All right, guys. Thank you guys for hearing me out on my final thought. I want to let you know, Super Game Boy, get that. Game Boy Advance SP, get that. To clean out your games, what are you going to use? You're going to use Windex. You can use Brasso. Use Q-tips at the dollar store. Just a quick recap, Rad Racer is a good game. All right, guys. You guys have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. Bye.